My boyfriend, the man I trusted with everything, canceled our dinner plans last Friday. He told me he had something important to discuss with his parents alone. But what he didn't know was that I was about to discover the kind of betrayal that knocks the wind out of your chest. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like and sharing it with the people you care about. Jason and I had been together for almost 3 years. At first he felt like the kind of man I had been waiting for. Charming, sweet, and always making me laugh. He was the type who brought flowers to my office just because, who stayed up with me on nights when I was stressed about work, who made me believe I had finally found someone who wouldn't hurt me. But as time went on, there were little cracks I chose to ignore. He could be distant sometimes, distracted in ways that didn't make sense, and whenever I asked about it, he brushed me off with an easy smile that I always wanted to believe. That Friday we had dinner plans at a cozy Italian place we both loved. I had been looking forward to it all week, imagining us sharing pasta and maybe a glass of wine. But just a couple of hours before, Jason called and said he couldn't make it. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed, as he told me his parents needed him for something important, and it had to be just them. He apologized, but it didn't sound real. I hung up the phone, but my stomach twisted. Something about the way he said it didn't sit right with me. We've had dinners with his parents before. Why would this time be different? And why cancel on me at the last second if it was truly important? I told myself not to be paranoid, but the thought kept circling my mind like a storm I couldn't escape. I paced around my apartment, staring at the dress I had laid out for our dinner, and the more I thought, the more uneasy I became. I knew Jason well enough to catch when he was hiding something, and that night I felt it in my bones. Finally, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I grabbed a hoodie from my closet, pulled the hood over my head and slid on a cap. My heart was racing as if I were about to commit a crime. I told myself maybe I was overthinking, maybe I'd regret this, but another part of me whispered that I needed to know. I drove out and parked near his parents' favorite restaurant, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I told myself I'd just check, see if he was really there with his parents, and go home if it was nothing. I walked inside, keeping my head down, and asked for a table in the corner. My eyes darted around the room until they landed on him. There was Jason sitting at a table, his parents beside him. My heart slowed with relief for a split second. He hadn't lied about meeting them. But then I saw her, sitting right next to him, smiling, laughing, leaning close like she belonged there. His ex. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My breath caught in my throat as I pulled my hood tighter around my face. He hadn't just lied. He had brought me back to the very nightmare he promised I'd never have to worry about. And I realized in that moment, I wasn't just a girlfriend sitting alone in a corner. I was about to become the witness to my own betrayal. I trailed Jason's car at a careful distance until he pulled into the parking lot of an upscale restaurant. My pulse thudded in my ears as I parked a few rows away. I tugged my hood lower, pulled the brim of my cap down, and forced my hands to stop shaking before I walked inside. The hostess asked if I had a reservation, and I mumbled that I'd take any small table. She led me to a corner near the back, close enough to see without being obvious. I slid into the chair, kept my head down, and tried to steady my breathing. Then I spotted him. Jason was already seated with his parents, just as he said. For a fleeting second I almost laughed at myself for doubting. But before the relief could settle, I saw her. Claire. The woman I thought was long gone from his life. She was sitting right next to him, her arm resting comfortably on the back of his chair, her smile wide and easy. Jason's parents looked thrilled, their eyes lighting up whenever Claire spoke. His mom leaned in, touching her hand, laughing warmly as if she were family. His dad raised a glass in her direction, nodding in approval. It wasn't the stiff politeness of meeting someone new. It was familiarity, comfort, even joy. My chest constricted as I gripped the edge of my table, forcing myself not to react. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They weren't just catching up. This looked like a reunion everyone had been waiting for. Jason leaned close to Claire, and before I could blink, his hand slid over hers for a moment. Gentle, intentional, like it belonged there. The sight hit me harder than anything I'd imagined. I froze in my seat, silent, watching the scene unfold just a few feet away, every muscle in my body screaming, but my face hidden under my hood. Jason once brushed off Claire's name with a quick shrug, calling her just the past. He said it so casually, as if she were a closed chapter, something buried and done. Sitting there now, only a few feet away, I realized how smoothly he had lied to me. His words replayed in my head, each one sharper than the last. I watched him lean closer to her, his smile wide, his parents glowing with pride. It wasn't the body language of someone leaving the past behind. It was a man slipping back into something familiar, something he had never truly let go. Little memories began stitching themselves together in my mind. The late nights he blamed on extra work. The vague stories about grabbing drinks with coworkers I'd never met. The way he had started drifting when we were alone. His phone lighting up, his eyes flickering, his laugh forced. I had ignored every warning sign, convincing myself he was tired, distracted, just under pressure. But now I could see the pattern. He hadn't been tired. He hadn't been distracted. He had been rehearsing for this moment. His parents sat across from him, laughing easily with Claire, their smiles warm, their voices light. It was the picture of comfort, of belonging. I could see it in the way his mother's hand brushed Claire's wrist, in the way his father leaned in with approval. They weren't just tolerating her presence. They were welcoming her back like nothing had ever changed. I pulled out my phone under the table, keeping the screen low. My fingers moved quickly, jotting notes. Time, date, the exact restaurant, every detail I could capture. I didn't let myself look away for long. I recorded their laughter in my memory, the way Jason's hand brushed her arm, the way his parents smiled at her like she had never left. Each word I typed steadied me. Proof. Evidence. I needed it all. Sitting in silence, with my hood still shadowing my face, I built a record of the betrayal unfolding right in front of me. I pushed my chair back as quietly as I could, keeping my hood low while slipping toward the exit. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced them to move, each step heavier than the last. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, but it didn't calm me. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my keys while fumbling for the car door. The walk home felt endless. Every image from the restaurant replayed in my head. His smile, her hand under his parents' laughter. It looped over and over until it felt like the air in my chest was gone. My body burned with anger, yet my stomach churned with pain. I wanted to scream, cry, run all at once. Instead, I kept moving, one foot in front of the other, barely noticing the streets I passed. When I finally stepped into my apartment, the silence was deafening. I sat on the edge of the couch, my fingers digging into my knees, my thoughts spinning so fast I could hardly breathe. Rage pressed hard against heartbreak, colliding until it felt like my chest might collapse. Hours later, I heard his key in the lock. Jason walked in casually, tossing his jacket over the chair like any other night. He kissed my forehead quickly as if nothing in the world was out of place. He started talking about how his parents wanted advice on some financial stuff. His voice calm, smooth, almost rehearsed. I stared at him, nodding, my face carefully blank. Inside, every word he spoke twisted the knife deeper, but I didn't let a single crack show. I forced a small smile, murmured that I understood, and let him keep weaving his lie. He had no idea I already knew the truth. And as I sat there, hiding my fury behind quiet eyes, I began to plan. I started paying closer attention. Not openly, not enough for him to notice, but carefully, piece by piece. When he left his jacket on the chair one evening, I slipped my hand into the pocket. A folded receipt was tucked inside. 2 glasses of wine and a dessert I knew he hadn't shared with me. Another night, when he hugged me goodbye, I caught a faint scent clinging to his shirt. It wasn't my perfume. It was sweeter, heavier, something I didn't wear. I pressed my face against the fabric as if I were simply holding him longer, but inside my stomach twisted. His phone stayed close to him, but sometimes he slipped. A quick flash of a message while he reached for a drink. A contact name saved only with an initial, vague phrases like, "Last night was great," and "next time." He tilted the screen away before I could see more, smiling at me as though nothing were wrong. I needed more than suspicions. So I found a way to talk to Megan, one of his coworkers I had met at a holiday party. I made it casual, an invitation for coffee, just catching up. She didn't realize the weight her words carried when she laughed and mentioned Jason being distracted lately, how he'd been ducking out early, leaving others to cover for him. My chest tightened as I listened, nodding politely, hiding the storm rising inside me. The pieces were fitting together too neatly. This wasn't some random night, some single mistake he could explain away. It was deliberate, ongoing. A betrayal he had been building for weeks right under my nose. I started small. One afternoon, I told Jason I had a late work meeting and wouldn't be home until after midnight. I kissed his cheek, smiled like everything was normal, then waited in my car a block away. Less than an hour later, he slipped out of the apartment, dressed nicer than usual, his phone in his hand, checking the screen as he hurried down the street. The next week I tried again. I mentioned dinner with an old friend from college, someone he had never met. I made a show of getting ready, left with my purse and circled back quietly. From the corner window, I saw him pacing in the living room, glancing at the clock before grabbing his jacket and leaving again. Each time I tested him, the outcome was the same. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even try to hide it well. The lies came easily, his face smooth, his voice calm. If I hadn't been watching so closely, I might have believed him. But I wasn't just looking for confirmation anymore. I was collecting proof, building a case in my head. I kept my reactions hidden, my smile steady, my voice gentle, while inside, every word he spoke fueled the fire. Quietly, I decided I wouldn't slip away without a sound. I wouldn't let him walk free while I carried the weight of what he had done. Oh, he was going to feel it. The same sting that had hit me at that restaurant, the same humiliation that burned every time I remembered his hand on hers. He was going to know exactly what it felt like. One evening, while we were sitting on the couch, Jason leaned back with a grin and said, almost offhand, "You know, maybe it's about time we start thinking about the next step. Engagement, settling down, that sort of thing." His tone was light, casual, as if he were tossing out an idea, but his eyes searched mine, waiting for a reaction. I forced a smile, my heart pounding for reasons he couldn't guess. To anyone else, those words might have sounded romantic, a promise for the future. To me, they were nothing but bait, a way to keep me anchored while he entertained someone else on the side. The image of Claire at that restaurant flashed through my mind, her hand under his parents glowing with pride. I knew exactly what he was doing, keeping me in place while he balanced two lives. A few days later, his mother called and extended an invitation. Dinner at their house, something special. Her voice was warm but carried a tone that made my stomach tighten. I accepted without hesitation. She sounded almost rehearsed, like she had been waiting for this. When I hung up, I sat still for a long moment, the phone heavy in my hand. That dinner wasn't just a gathering, it was my chance. The same way I had seen them welcome Claire, I could walk in quiet and steady and show them who Jason really was. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel scared. What I felt was a sharp, cold clarity. If he wanted to play perfect son, perfect boyfriend, balancing secrets with practiced smiles, then he could do it in front of everyone. And I would be there to tear it down. So I marked the date, kept my expression soft when he talked about the future, and waited. I became deliberate in every move. When Jason slipped out one evening, I followed at a distance, careful not to be noticed. He met Claire outside a quiet bar, his hand brushing hers as they walked in together. I waited until they sat at a table by the window, then lifted my phone, the camera angled just right. Snap after snap, I caught them laughing, leaning close, looking like a couple with no secrets between them. Another night, I sat in my car a block away from her apartment. Jason arrived not long after, knocking on her door like he had done it countless times before. They stood in the doorway talking, her smile wide, his body relaxed in a way I hadn't seen with me in months. I hit record, capturing their voices through the small crack of an open window. What I heard cut deeper than anything else. Jason's voice, low but clear. "My parents never really liked Emily. They always wanted you." The words replayed in my head even as I saved the file. My hands steady despite the ache in my chest. He had reduced me to nothing more than an obstacle, a placeholder, while treating her as the prize. I stored every photo, every recording in a folder locked away, each piece a weapon waiting for the right moment. I wasn't collecting these for closure. I wasn't doing it to cry over later. I was preparing. I knew what I was about to do would change everything, but I didn't hesitate. The mask he wore, the charming man, the loyal boyfriend, the perfect son, was about to crack, and I would be the one to shatter it in front of everyone who believed his lies. The night of the dinner, I walked into his parents' house carrying nothing but my purse and the calm I had practiced in the mirror. His mother greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her words polite but clipped. His father shook my hand quickly, his attention already drifting elsewhere. Their warmth was gone, replaced with a distance that told me everything. Claire had been there before me, weaving herself back into their circle. At the table, I felt it in every glance. They asked me safe, shallow questions, their voices strained. But when Claire's name slipped into conversation, their faces lit up, the coldness melting instantly. They leaned in when Jason mentioned her, laughing easily, their approval clear. I sat quietly, every word filing itself away, waiting for the moment I had prepared for. Halfway through the meal, Jason rose, glass in hand, his smile wide. "I just want to say something about the future," he began, his voice steady, rehearsed. His parents' eyes shone with pride, already expecting a speech that fit the story he'd been selling them. I didn't give him the chance. My hand slid into my purse, fingers wrapping around my phone. I stood, my chair scraping softly against the floor, and with one motion placed the device on the table. Photos lit up the screen first, him and Claire together, undeniable. Then with a single tap the recording played. His own voice filled the room. My parents never really liked Emily. They always wanted you. The sound cut through the air like glass shattering. Silence followed, thick and heavy. His mother's face drained of color, his father's jaw tightened, their pride collapsing into shock. I looked straight at Jason, my voice clear, each word deliberate. You wanted a future? This is it. Everyone sees you now. I didn't cry. I didn't falter. I took control. Jason's face crumbled the second the recording ended. His mother stared at him like she didn't recognize the man standing there, her fork resting midair, her lips pressed thin. His father leaned back, disappointment etched deep across his face. Across the table, Claire's expression shifted from smug to furious, her eyes darting between me and him as if she suddenly realized she had been dragged into the fire too. Jason tried to speak, stammering out fragments. It's not what it looks like, you don't understand. But no one reached to save him. The silence around him was louder than any accusation. I slid my phone back into my purse and stood. My chair pushed neatly under the table, my posture straight, my voice calm. I won't sit here another minute, I said, looking at each of them before turning my gaze back to Jason. You've done enough. They can see it now and so can I. I walked to the door without hurry, every step deliberate. Behind me I heard the scrape of his chair, his footsteps rushing after mine. Emily, wait. Please just talk to me. We can fix this. Don't leave like this. His voice cracked with panic, but I didn't slow down. I opened the front door, the night air cool against my skin, and kept walking down the path to my car. He called my name again, but I didn't turn, didn't give him even a glance. The begging, the desperation, it was too late. I started the engine, hands steady on the wheel. As the house faded in the rearview mirror, hot tears spilled down my cheeks, but they carried no weakness. My chest ached, yes, but underneath the ache burned something stronger. I hadn't just uncovered the betrayal. I hadn't just caught him. I had ended it on my terms, with the truth laid bare for everyone to see. Betrayal had cut me, heartbreak had nearly broken me, but revenge, quiet, precise, undeniable, had given me back my power. Do you think I was right to walk away, or should I have given Jason another chance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned.